Good morning, everybody. Hope you all are doing well today. Sorry, there's a brakes making noise outside. First and foremost, I want to let you all know that I am still in the midst of grading your Reaction 2 papers. I do apologize. I'm in the middle of the National Student Advertising Competition and trying to get some work done there, as well as the National Communication Association. I've got some conference work that I'm trying to work on there. So I'm getting to them. I promise they will be done by this week. Again, I am sorry for the delay, but I will make sure that they are done within a relatively timely manner. Like I said, appreciate your patience, and hopefully we can get through this very shortly. There are a couple things I do want to mention for this week specifically, as I'm scrolling down and looking at the cell by myself. Within this week of what's upcoming, we're getting a little bit into some of the deeper areas of this particular class here. We will be looking at a reflection paper that's not due till March 30th, again by 11:59 p.m. Let me verify that and just want to make sure. Yes, March 30th, 11:59 p.m. So that's, you don't have any papers due this week, but I have two things that I'm going to be looking at. One is going to be a discussion board, which I will post up either today or tomorrow, as well as an exam review. So this won't take place until April 4th through 6th. I'm not going to actually give any lectures that week. It'll just be the exam itself. So please make sure that you take a look at it. It will open at 6 a.m. on April 4th and close April 6th by 11:59 p.m. So I will be in Boston when that happens, but I will try to keep an eye out on it. Keep my laptop with me just in case anything goes awry. So please let me know. Like I said, even though I will be in Boston, I'll be in a conference. I will do my best to keep on track of my email and keep everything online in that regard. So like I said, I will look to get your papers done. Those are what's going to be due. Again, I haven't seen any emails yet about the project, and that's okay. You know, if you've got your topic down, if you think you know what you're going to do, that's absolutely fine. But if you do have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. Again, this is what I'm here for. So I do want to mention of something I didn't cover over on Friday. We had a bit of a family emergency, so I didn't get around to recording the persuasion chapter that I wanted to. However, I will be able to do it today, and that's talking a little bit about scarcity. Scarcity is really interesting in terms of the realms of persuasion, because in many cases it produces what I consider the best examples. One of my personal favorite ones was one that happened to me recently, was how a car salesperson really indicated on how they were going to sell what is now my wife and I's car by use of scarcity. And you probably have done this once or another, not as a car salesperson, but being sold a car at one point or another, is there may be an instance where the car that we wanted, in this case, might not be there tomorrow. So much of the sales that was going on that day was, what can I do to get you to sign on this line today? That was the message being communicated to us. And as much as my wife and I had to get a car, we were in dire need. Our other one wasn't working. We just needed to get a car. The big thing was we weren't ready that day. We wanted to talk it over. And so the pressuring was a little bit difficult in terms of persuasion. Because, again, we knew what was going on. We knew we had to get a car, but at the same time, we hated being pressured by this particular salesperson. And, again, the notion of there may not be a tomorrow, if you will, when it comes to your car. And think of the implications of that persuasion attempt. Is as much as I sat there and said, you know, it was 6 o'clock at night. They were going to close soon. And I was like, I'm not really that worried, but there's still a small part of you that sits there and says, what if somebody comes in behind me and takes the car that I wanted the next morning? Because we wouldn't be able to get there until 5 o'clock. So when someone indicates that there may not be a tomorrow, or we want to take, we place more want on a specific object, idea, and thus makes it that we want it more. We want to get that particular, in this case, a car, or whatever it may be, a special deal in this case. And the restriction of time that is what sells it, not necessarily the product itself. So it's not necessarily the want of the product. You do want it, but the way that it's persuaded is the fact that there is a limited time in this case. And so the time is the actual thing that looks into the scarcity. It's usually either amount of or time. So again, everything is brought to you by numbers when it comes to scarcity. And all this is just to say that there's more value when less things are available. So this is a limited number or a deadline. So let's go off a couple of these. So the principle holds on for two main points. First, things are difficult to attain when they have typically more value. So, but who assigns value in this case? That's difficult, and we have a lot of debate on what is considered value. What products are considered more valuable than others? And you can look no further in terms of trends. So when I was younger, it was two different things. It was Beanie Babies and Pokemon cards that held a lot of weight when it came to value, and the limited time of value in this case. So I thought of the Peace Beanie Baby that I think is selling for $15,000 on eBay right now, versus the limited edition Princess Diana Beanie Baby that was purple and had a rose and it was a bear. And but again, it really held this inherent placement of value that this was going to be worth a lot of money. Same with Pokemon cards. When I was younger, is the Charizard Pokemon card. It was a lizard, or a dragon in this case, and although no different from any other, again, held some significant weight in terms of the value of it. And so a lot of people would line up and purchase quite a few of these packages because they knew that this would be the possible result. I had one myself, and I sold it off for $100 when I was in middle school. Again, it was worth that much at the time. Now, granted, it's probably inherently worthless at this point, but who assigns this meaning? Because these are not inherently more valuable than others, but we perceive them that way. Keeping in the theme of Pokemon, in this case, my sister still plays Pokemon Go, and one of the things she would talk about is getting a particular Pokemon that was only released in this certain area. It was limited edition. She lives in Ireland right now, and when she comes to the States, she said there's a limited edition of certain Pokemon that you can only get in the United States, and so I want to get that while I'm here. So again, limited time and limited quantity of something she can't get over there. It's scarce. It's rare in this particular case. And this would be the same of a certain location releasing, the digital Pokemon around of something that was really rare in this case, and how many people would come to get it. But again, who assigns this meaning? And it's not that these particular Pokemon in this case were really all that more valuable in terms of the things that they did, in terms of battling, but it is the collectathon that you want to, well, as the slogan in Pokemon is, gotta catch them all. It's that notion that some of them are going to be very easy to catch and some of them are going to be really difficult to catch. So we want to make sure that the catch in this case is kind of the hunt, and it's rare, and that makes it that much more special when I have something that's rare that another person doesn't have. So again, the cost will go up, whether it be monetary or bartering in terms of trade value. Thus, the drive to get it goes up. So again, we will spend a lot of time going after something that's rare versus something that we can get any old time. So that's the first thing. So things that are difficult to attain are typically more valuable. The other is, as things become less accessible, we lose freedoms. So this is what's called, as Cialdini puts it, psychological resistance theory. And we respond to the loss of freedoms by wanting to have them more than before. So Christmas toys have that effect on people. Excuse me. You usually see these kind of images of B-roll of people going through Black Friday and almost killing each other trying to get the latest, greatest thing in terms of maybe it's a television, maybe it's a video game system, maybe it's the new It toy of the season, that kind of thing. And so the interesting thing, though, is stores usually play up to the scarcity, and they use it to their advantage. Now, I would say, this is a tactic that Toys R Us might use, but since Toys R Us is going out of business in this case, that's going to be a bit of a hard sell in terms of the example. But it was an interesting concept that when, give you an example for the toys of, what was it? I think it was Tickle Me Elmo was the hot toy, and everybody wanted to get one. And again, people almost killed each other to get one. There's probably bootlegs of this toy being sold for 3 times the value. It was just an insane time where people were trying to get this kind of thing. But one thing we have to mention is that the stores would actually purposely undersell and understock the toys that were being given. And when I was first introduced with this concept, I was like, what a weird concept. You would think that you would want to have as much sold, as much put out there so that everybody can have a chance to get one. But at the same time, this is the notion of scarcity. So there's 2 things playing at work here. First is the scarcity of it has more value. If the store shelves were lined with this particular toy, well, then it loses value because there's so many of them. Whereas if it's much more limited and it's again very difficult to find, then it's going to be something that people are going to try to find ways to get that they wouldn't normally do. But the other thing was they understocked them because they knew that there's this kind of notion of I'm trying to think of the word here, but anyway, if you were to try to give a child a gift and it wasn't exactly what they wanted, there's this almost notion of trying to get the child's forgiveness because you're like, well, I didn't get what the child wanted, so I'm going to give them a kind of a placeholder gift during Christmas. And so once Christmas is over, what happens is the stores actually overstock these toys. And because they're overstocking it, that means the parents have time to get it, they purchase it, and they just bought 2 gifts instead of 1. And they still bought the same one for the same price. So again, it was really genius tactics in terms of persuasion and in terms of using the role of scarcity. So that's another thing that we're dealing with here. Other areas that Cialdini talked about was the notion of when ages typically are involved when it comes to this notion of scarcity and freedom. So freedom of your rights is a main thing with scarcity. And so I would imagine that Freud would have a lot to say, and this Sigmund Freud would have a lot to say in terms of as we're looking and a person is growing older, your egos and super egos kind of hone in what our desires are. So we think of it as a natural id, if you will. If you've heard of Sigmund Freud and know the stages of growth in this case, there's the id, which is basically an I want. It is perpetually saying that I want this, I want that, and that's quintessentially what a baby wants, or what a baby is in this case, is a series of saying that I want to go to sleep, I want to eat, I want to use the restroom. Those are the kind of things that we think about. However, once we get older, we start to realize that some of these rights are taken away from us in terms of the I want gets broken down because now we're giving more responsibilities, now we're giving more things that we can and can't do. And so we're restricted with guidelines. So ego in this case would look at, I want to do this, but I can't because of certain restrictions. So my brain starts to get a little bit more involved in this case. So, this is when people think of like your terrible twos, if you will, and saying the word no. You have finally given them these restrictions. And so they're kind of fighting back in terms of what their rights are, what their freedoms are. And then there's the superego, which is their moral system, in terms of not only can I not do this because of restrictions, I can't do it because of whatever moral reasons you assign to it. Hold on.